Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. She was maybe in the funniest television show of all time, Dory on The Great Search Party, mauled by a dog in the terrifying green room. And now you can see Alia Shawkat and Laia Costa in Duck Butter, a claustrophobic romance written by Shawkat and the director, the great Miguel Arteta. Let's take a look at the trailer.
I thought that all it took was me to know I was gay and then I'd be gay, but I
Are you gay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pause for a second, guys. We're gonna just come in.
Sorry I was a little intense in there.
No, it's hard to get everyone on the same page, especially when it feels like a little forced.
Mm-hmm.
This is my first song. I'm gonna sing it to you.
Hi, I'm Naima.
You know these kind of couples that they spend like 10 years together and then they get married, they divorce in 1 year. Just go and have fun with the things you have right there.
Yeah, like this. This whole night, we should do this for like 24 hours straight.
What are you doing? I want to know you for real. We can skip time. It's like dating 10 years.
Yeah.
I want to see you getting angry. You're so beautiful. Shout it to the moon. She is so beautiful!
I haven't said yes to anything in so long. It's like she lives in a way that she doesn't question anything about herself.
You okay?
Yeah. I've never actually gotten close enough to somebody to love them.
You know, you should try not to go for the easy thing. You can't play it safe in love. You have to just go and jump.
Everybody, please welcome Miguel Arteta, Alia Shawkat, and Laia Costa. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, congratulations on the film. Oh, did you speak too loud?
It's very loud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how I happen to figure it out somehow all the time. Congrats on the film. I loved it. I thought you guys captured something really perfectly, which is when you fall for someone quickly and everything feels amazing and you're really scared of how it could ever go bad and when you learn the real thing about a person, essentially. Talk about developing this. I know it was like a 5-year process for the two of you. You worked together in Cedar Rapids and decided you want to make something. When did you finally stumble across this?
We worked for 5 years, locked in a room together.
Food or water.
I think it was in the Toronto Film Festival. I worked with Alia in a film called Cedar Rapids, and I knew that I wanted to make something with her. I got to be friends with her, and then I knew I want to write something with her, and I proposed.
Why? What was it? What was it about her temperament or about her that made you want to do those things?
She's smart.
He saw my handwriting and was like, she knows how to write. Yeah, we had just like, once we became friends, and then when he suggested the idea of writing something, we met at my house, and like, it kind of felt like a writer's first date. We were just like, so what do you want to write about? And we both realized that we both wanted to tell stories about love, pretty much. And it started with the idea of why does it hurt so much? And that was the question that kind of started it. And then, 5 years later, in many different stages of writing, a regular kind of script format with dialogue and about a relationship that was a year and a half, then it evolved to a 24-hour improvised detail outline.
How did it evolve into that? What made it evolve into that?
Well, I would like to say we started with the question, why does it hurt so much? And I watched the movie recently, and I'm still asking the question, so.
Yeah, that's good then.
Yeah.
That means it works.
We wrote the whole screenplay, and then a friend of ours read it and said, there is a part in the first 30 pages where they spend 24 hours together having sex every hour on the hour, and I wish that was the whole movie. And I remember telling you at a coffee shop, and she had that naughty look in her face that she has right now, and I was like, should we do it? And she was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Did you have to read between the lines on that advice when that person said that? Was that like, okay, you might be saying this because it's a good story or because there's sex on every hour? What are we talking about here?
I'm game for both. Either one's fine.
Both are entertaining.
Yeah, I think what we realized and throughout the whole writing process is that we just kept listening to like the idea of changing it and what was best for the story, and we weren't precious with it. So all of a sudden we were like, wait, can the whole 1.5-year relationship, all the different stories and points, they all filtered in perfectly in the 24 hours and in a way got the story across more, which is like they spend 24 hours together, but it's like they're dating for 1.5 years. They go through all the stages. So everything just kept fitting. So we were just kept like cutting the fat. We're like, who needs that? Who needs this? And it just got like to the core of what we actually wanted to say about these two people.
So at that point, you have a hook, but you also have a very clear experience that is sort of tangled up in what you were writing before, but almost distilled.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Laia, I feel like at this point you're kind of addicted to doing things that.
It's Laia.
Laia, I'm sorry.
Just
Laia.
like
Alia, Laia.
like Playa. I know it's very rare that you have two actresses with the same 4 letters in the name, but
I said Alia, or I said Alia.
Yeah, Alia.
That's what I said.
That's right.
Okay.
And then Laia.
Laia.
I never correct.
You never. No, you were just looking at me with a big smile. It was very nice of you. Thank you.
I think it's better just to say yeah, and let's go to the nice conversation.
I feel like you're kind of addicted to, or at least getting cast in these parts that most actresses would be terrified of between Victoria and this. The first being a movie that was really all one shot and almost like a breathless 90 minutes, to this, which is a lot of improvised, emotional scenes and pretty graphic sex scenes. I don't want to. Not graphic is sort of the wrong word to use, I think.
The good thing with this movie was shot in 24 hours real time. So I did the
time.
Yeah, it was like 2.5 hours, and I was like, oh, no one is gonna ask me for that again. And then I met them, and they were like 24 hours, and I was like, I'm all in. So yeah, I mean, as an actor, if you can have these very unique projects, I think it's the best thing you can ever have. So I feel so lucky. I love this kind of projects.
Did you feel like you kind of related to this experience? I mean, coming from something like Victoria, where it was shot in 24 hours kind of thing, and
I think it's totally different.
Yeah.
Because it's 24 hours, not 2.5. Though it's edit cut, but we were working for 24 hours, so I thought it was like it's gonna be like more interesting. It's just different. It felt different, but just unique as the other one. So.
Your character is kind of a freewheeling person, but at the same time, I think there is some inhibitions that she has, or some issues that come with her freewheeling lifestyle. What did you think about? What kind of work did you do with this character? Because I know a fair amount was improvised, right? Or no? Is it all fairly scripted?
It was all pretty much
All
improvised.
improvised, yeah.
We gave up the script and created an outline and thought, let's have them just make it all up.
It's like to make something improvised, you have to make sure we all are in the same page. Otherwise, it's just noise. Yeah. So we really had like the structure and the characters. And yeah, I loved about Sergio that she's trying to hide even to herself, like her inner troubles maybe. And you can see like the whole evolution of it during the movie as the couple together,
Miguel, is this the first time that you've done an all improvised film? Usually, Mike White, who you work with regularly, is one of the great scriptwriters. Is this the first time you've really done improvisation? I've
been very lucky to work with him. Yeah, this is the first time I've done an improvised movie. Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was incredible because I had 2 incredible actresses to do it with. We rehearsed, I think, 6 days. We went through it. And yet we sort of had a rule that Laia brought from her work, which was like, let's not repeat lines too much. Mm-hmm. Like, let's always say it differently. And by the time the movie, there was rehearsals where I was not part of them because I was like, I'm not needed here. Like, you guys can just do this on your own. And when the movie took off, it was just a delight. I was more like an audience member than a director. was just watching it unfold.
It's so clear when you see a movie that is improvised that has a strong director behind it and a strong script beforehand, because the beats are very clear, and it's like you said, it doesn't feel like noise. When you got to the set and you started shooting, did you feel like you could that was natural and easy to do, or you still had to sort of work around making sure the noise wasn't a part of the improvisation?
I think that's director's work. You know, like to make sure everything has like a narrative. When I'm in, as an actor, when I'm inside, I forget about it. I already know like the points, emotional points and the characters. So now it's your job to make sure you are getting from me what you need.
Right.
I think in my case, I totally forgot about making sure the music was nice. I think for Miguel, that was his work. And I think Alia was also a little bit like taking it a little bit because she also wrote it. Yeah. So she was more engaged to the story.
And we had in a way, like, not every scene, but it almost felt like we had 3 takes of everything. The first one, it was just like us just figuring it out. The second one was a little more like what was off the outline, and then the third one was like the best combination and also just like forget the rules. And Miguel will just be like, okay, this one just go. You know what's going on. Now go for it. And then by the end, and we'd have to move really fast, especially when we shot in the 24-hour sequence. And by the third time or whatever, it was like all of a sudden everything clicked. And the beats were just like really clear. But I also think it was just like our chemistry worked out so well that, never felt like we were talking at the same time or like aware that we were doing some kind of dialogue. We were just being able to be very present with each other. And then especially in the 24-hour sequence, after a while we forgot there were cameras there. You know, I was like peeing in front of the crew. I was like, where are we going? What's happening? Like it was just like all felt so alive, like a live theater almost.
How did you do the 24-hour sequence? How did you plan it?
Great producers.
Yeah, we had amazing producers. The Duplass brothers, Mel Eslin and Natalie, they were incredible. They created a very easygoing, I don't even know what the budget of the movie is. This was yeah, it was so freeing. I've never worked that way, guys. It was, the Duplass have set up a world where it's very creatively energizing. And so we planned it. There's 2 crews, so that the people weren't dying. And a few key people were working 27 hours straight. But we were so excited, we set it up, so I tried to set it up so it was possible to fail. I said, if we want to, we can repeat the 24 hours, 12 hours at a time later. So if something doesn't work, who cares? But let's see if we can do 24 hours. So it became like a game. What's the game where you put all the wood and you keep taking one piece?
Jenga?
Yeah. Like,
I know something.
and it was really exciting. By the time we got to hour 17, we were like, is hour 18 gonna work? Is hour 19 gonna work? Is hour 20 gonna work? And it was more and more energizing. And by the time they did the last scene, if you've seen the movie, I was like, how the hell are we gonna pull this off? And if it doesn't work, what's gonna happen? And because it's been so beautiful for 23 hours straight. And then it was humbling to watch them, because literally I don't know how, I don't think you guys were really aware of the cameras or gave a shit that we were there by the hour 20.
I thought we seemed fine, and then I remember when Kate Berlant shows up for the orgy sequence, and she was looking at me, she was like, so how are you feeling? And I was like, I feel great, I feel fine actually. And I saw her reaction, like reacting to me, and I was like, oh, I must seem crazy actually. But it was so freeing as an actor, because like normally you have to prepare, like, where did I just come from, where am I going as a character? And usually it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, you're having your first coffee, but your scene is you're supposed to be out all night or whatever, and you have to kind of manifest the energy that's right for the scene. Whereas for this, our energy was completely matched to what the characters were going through. So we never really had to consciously be aware of like, okay, so what state of mind are we in now? We were just in it, because the characters are awake for the 24 hours. So it was almost able to set the tone for each scene more appropriately, because like a scene that maybe was written super energetic, and if we're kind of tired, then we play it, we're kind of tired, because it's just like the time just like set us up.
Was there a fear that you wouldn't be able to get the hours done per scene, or the scenes done per hour, or however it was, because you were also not going off of a very a script? You're going off of like a sort of beaded outline, or were the scenes so specifically beaded and plotted out that you might as well have been kind of going off of a script?
They were specific, but it was still a fear. I mean, there's always a fear of running out of time on any production. But some scenes wouldn't take long, and then other ones would take longer. So, you know, Mel, who's the producer, was so great with that. Like, we all had our little packet and just like being aware of like, did we get this point across? And then sometimes something new would come out that we would have to be aware of, and then the next scene would be affected by that.
Something new would come up.
All the time.
All the time, yeah.
How does that work?
Oh, it was great. You know, like for example, we had the production designer build this painting that turned out pretty ugly of two birds, of black and white birds, when they get to her house, and then she hadn't seen it, and she walks in and just starts to take it apart and say, "This is
Climbed on the
horrible,
piano.
depressing. This is why your life is bad." And climbs up and throws it into the wall. And so I was like, I guess that's a big story point now from now on.
The opening of the film is, you know, is your character sort of not gelling well on a film set. You know, a film run by the Duplass brothers, which clearly influences how this is made. I mean, they're the producers of it. But have any of you ever had that experience before, where you're just sort of in a creative situation and it's not gelling? No names, obviously.
No, it's always been great. Yeah, not to the same degree, but you know, I felt like we were able to create the like my worst fear as an actor in that moment. But I've definitely been on sets, yeah, where like my confidence just shuts down. I remember I did a small part on a Whit Stillman movie, and he's very word specific, and I couldn't get the word right. I kept saying like a synonym, and he just came up to me and was like, you have to say the word as it's written. And the sound guy was in the room with me, and he was like, you could do it. And he kept repeating the line to me, the boom guy, and I was like, I can't do it. And my confidence was just like sucked out of the room. Yeah. But I think I eventually got there. But yeah.
I wondered what made you choose that specific scenario that she's performing in for her to not necessarily react with as much dramatic gravitas as the straight male directors are asking for her. Like everybody that's in the scene for as far as we know are straight, and your character is queer, and she's the one who doesn't necessarily take this sort of big coming out story moment as dramatically seriously as the rest of them. Was that also sort of intentional?
You know, it's funny when I look back on it. It has like a layer to it that I didn't. But I don't think we even really consciously were that aware of that. Like I just thought it was
eating
funny.
An onion ring and it's like, are you gay?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. And what was like when I think about it, if I give it more gravitas, it's like it was important for us to make a movie that wasn't like it is a queer story, but the film isn't about them coming out or the drama of what it is to be gay. It's just about two people who are together. So in a way, it kind of, the opening scene, like, not mocking it, but to a degree, mocking those kinds of films or just like commenting on those kind of films.
Well, so often I think the queer community has criticized the straight community for straight artists for co-opting the coming out story, and it being the sort of only gay narrative that is told by straight people. So I just think it's such a great joke at the top of your film for her to be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the onion rings. Yeah.
But that wasn't really a focus or part or like on your mind when you were writing that scene. It was just like.
I mean, to me, I was very grateful that Mark and Jay Duplass were willing to take the piss out of themselves and say like, yes, you know, indie movies today like almost co-opt and abuse this topic and often handily, you know, by straight people. And I thought it just seemed like the kind of flavor of misguided, you know, indie movie that we have seen quite a bit. And
I also feel like they took the piss out of themselves a little bit because they're sort of known as like the nicest guys in the world, and they are incredibly nice guys. But they are also filmmakers who have to make a movie, and you only have a certain amount of daylight and money and time and business when it comes to making movies. So it's good to kind of see them be sort of like professional at a certain point and sort of fire your character, which is probably something that they've had to do before.
Totally, yeah.
yeah. You know, in the movie, she goes to a little part in a Mark and Jay Duplass movie, doesn't do very well, and later on finds out she's fired. But they do an audition scene together late in the night for another movie, and then her character encourages to write Mark and Jay Duplass a letter to say to go fuck off. And what was awesome is that they wrote this email that she provides
in real time,
and we send it to Jay Duplass in real time. And the response you get in the movie is his real response that came back.
Yeah, that I saw for the first time on my phone. Yeah, Mel was like, Jay should be sending you the email soon. And so then I like reading it on camera, like, oh no.
I bet he loved that. He knew he was like part of this thing that was happening, like on the other side of town.
I gotta send that email for that film they're shooting.
I oftentimes don't like to ask about sex scenes because it's an intimate thing between performers. So, how did you get comfortable with each other in doing that? How do you find that comfort?
I don't know how we were, right?
Yeah, it was just comfortable. I mean, I remember we had discussions about it because, again, we weren't going to have a lot of time. And so we even discussed, we're like, do we need to choreograph these beats or rehearse them? And it was more just talking. What was important was, again, that in a way we're trying to capture a 1.5-year relationship in 24 hours. So the way you have sex in a relationship over a 1.5 years, like starts off really lustfully, and then it's really intimate and quiet, and then all of a sudden you're in a fight.
2 hours.
Yeah, that's like a real, joke, like bump. But like, yeah, like we haven't had sex in 2 hours as if it's been like 3 months, But it was
Really,
like
I loved that joke.
yeah, okay, good. I'm glad that read. But yeah, it was important just like to show the evolution of it, and that when you spend this much time, because that's why they're doing the experiment, is to get the lustful stuff out of the way. Because normally when you date, you have sex maybe the second or third date or whatever, and then you like take your time, and you don't discover somebody's kinks until many months into the relationship or whatever. There's all these different stages, and for this, it was like they're putting it all out there right away. But I mean, I think we were just so lucky too that our chemistry, like we really trusted each other. And when we did the sex scenes, Hilary Sparrow, the DP, was in the room, and it was just us three. And we kind of shot them all in the bedroom, like straight. And Miguel was just like peeking through the door. He's like, "It's beautiful. I love it. Just keep going." And it's like, but it felt like we were just alone in there. And it was really important that, obviously, that it wasn't through the male gaze, and desexualizing some of the nudity. Like, it was very important to me to have a scene where I'm topless getting a beer. I was like, we need to have that scene, that shot. And then there's scenes where we're having sex, but there's a lot of clothes on, because there's obviously, there still needs to be a lot of films that are made that are redirecting the image we have of women's bodies and how they're portrayed sexually too. So it's not this kind of like, oh my God, this sexual being is now about to take off her clothes, and the minute I see her nipple, it's like, it's crazy. It's like, no, you're there with these two people, and you're actually feeling, hopefully, like you're in there with them, and that it's like you are alone with these people.
And also, it was 24 hours, and we were doing 24 hours, so these girls they didn't know each other before the 24 hours, so we had the chemistry already. It was nice, like, to just let's see what happens, not choreographing it, not talking about it too much. Yeah. I actually remember we were shooting in LA, and I wanted to go to a spa that it's just for women there, and you go a Korean spa and you go naked. So I wanted to go with her, and he didn't want me to go with her because he didn't want me to see her naked before the real naked moment,
Really trusted in it being as real as possible. Like, these two people are like, to capture the essence of it being the first time on camera. And then we were just lucky it worked out and that we were able to be attracted to each other.
I am so extremely proud of the sex scenes. There's so many beautiful ones. And the first one, which was the first time they ever were physical, it was humbling. And I'm so proud because it's very hard to portray sex on screen in a way that feels fresh, it feels different, and that it really feels real. And what happened in that first sex scene, I haven't been making movies for a couple of decades. It was really humbling. I cannot believe how you guys offered yourself up to it. It was beautiful. And they both separately came to me afterwards and were like, "Have you know how beautiful she is?" And I was like, "You've been up close to her. You see her freckles up close? It's incredible."
Talk about Alia for a month.
She's sick of me now.
It was supposed to be a man, though, originally, right? In the original drafts of the script.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
God forbid. Imagine.
What was the point that made you change that? How did that happen?
I mean, I feel like you can answer this better, but pretty much like Laia. It was like as I was saying before, like the story, we were just open to changing it, and things just still weren't working. So we knew, it's like you keep doing something until it feels right. And so we were still open to changing things, and we were meeting with a lot of actors, a lot of male actors who were very talented, but they all seemed very uncomfortable with not just the sex scenes, but the idea of sharing a lot of intimacy and like a lot of the things we were talking about, keeping it fresh, actually sharing personal things to make it feel very real. And I remember being on the meetings with them and being like, "So I'm the one you're going to be having sex with," and them all just being like, "Mm-hmm." And I was like, "Why do I feel like I'm offering myself to you? Like, something feels wrong about this." And I was like, "We're acting. We're not actually having sex." But then Laia was gonna, we had seen Victoria, and we're talking about her for another part. And then once we had Skyped with her, we just realized she was Sergio more than anyone. So it's like, yeah, we made it into a woman, but it was like Laia was Sergio. So that's what changed it. And then it solved all these problems in the script. All of a sudden, we're like, great, we don't have to see a penis on camera as much as we didn't want to anyways. And just like all these things,
Much
just
as
like
we didn't want to.
But like, and it wasn't about like men versus women and male dynamics versus females. Like, we'll never figure each other out. Like, that's not what the story was about. It was about two people. And by it being two women,
that's
it
so-
cleaned it up. Yeah.
That's so, like, I didn't even think about that while I was watching, but now that you say that, that's so obvious that that would have happened in certain scenes. It would have just been like, oh,
Guys.
my girlfriend acts like that, or my boyfriend acts like that, and not just kind of like people act like this, and people do this with each other.
That's exactly the point. And, having, when we were talking with Laia, who, by the way, was very kind and said, you know what, I'll do the smaller part if you let me watch the whole 24 hours, because that's interesting.
That was my deal. I want the supporting role only if I can watch the 24 hours. If not, I'm not interested.
And suddenly we realized, isn't that Sergio, the spirit of Sergio? Like, we were very nervous to ask her, will you be Sergio? But fortunately, she said yes.
And then I did the 24 hours, and I was so mad at them because they didn't want to repeat it.
We were like, we got it. She was like, let's go
We
again.
have to do it again. We don't got it.
Before we even
got it,
finished the 24 hours, you were like, we're going to do this again, though, tomorrow, right? I was like, let's see what happens.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Here's a question right here.
Hi. I actually wanted to ask you, Alia, being a writer and an actress, were you able to juggle both responsibilities, or was it a little of a challenge for you?
Yeah, I hope I was able to. I mean, it was definitely a challenge, but once we started, it really was like such a collaborative of us three. And obviously with the crew and everything, but we had done all the work the previous 5 years. So once I felt like we had the story and the outline so set, us three started working together, and that's all I needed to do was stay present with them. And Miguel always, made such a safe environment, so I felt like I was just really able to focus on the acting part and be as present physically as I could be. It was a challenge, but in the best way. I hope to do it again. Yep.
Next question. I think this is our last one.
Hi. I was wondering what was the most artistically challenging thing about filming this for each of you?
For me, I think the 24 hours. I mean, I was obsessed with that from the beginning, and I still want to do it again. So, yeah, I think, and just working that way, very like a teamwork, everything felt right, like your ideas and like playing. I remember once telling her, like, I don't feel I'm acting. It's like so easy. We are just getting the point so easily. So I think that's very, very creative. And there are not a lot of creative projects that way. Like, like something that is risky. It feels so good. I think that has a lot to do with creativity.
Yeah, I would say it's like the same thing. Like the best part was the most challenging. It was the trust. You always have to trust anyone when you're making anything creative. But with this, we had, you couldn't question each other for a second. And we really put such an amazing team together. And starting with these two, it's like, we just had to throw ourselves in because we had literally no time. And everything, there was nothing to fall back on. There was no, protection shields at all. It was like we had to completely trust each other, and which is kind of ironic because the film is about how they can't trust each other. So in a way, that was the challenge, but that's what was the most rewarding for me.
For me, it was editing. Making the movie I've never had such a spectacular, magical time making a movie. It refreshed me, invigorated me in my life. It was like, it's something I'll carry with me forever.
Why? What was it about editing this versus editing something like Beatrice at Dinner or Cedar Rapids?
Well, I wish I could offer you the 24-hour version of the movie. You could just watch it. That would be better. But I loved all of it, so it was hard to cut it down. Because even though some, there was very little of it that wasn't authentic. They did a really wonderful job, and it's the kind of movie where we had such a magical time making it. I wish I could share every bit of it with the audience. And so it was hard to be like, no, we have to make a movie that works for people, within an hour and a half or so.
Well, guys, I love the film. Congratulations.
much.
It's at the Tribeca Film Festival right now. I think it's premiering tonight, correct? And then how can people see it after that if they're not in Tribeca this evening?
It'll be out April 26th, 7th,
7th, yeah.
in New York and LA.
And it'll be available on iTunes April 27th.
Oh, great.
On other platforms.
Yeah, VOD.
And eventually in the summer it'll be available in Netflix.
Oh, fantastic. Everybody give them a round of applause for Duck Potter. Let's hear it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ricky.